Unsealed Spellbook is the most misunderstood keystone in League of Legends history, and that's because it is the most convoluted keystone in the game's history. Every keystone in the game has an intuitive and engaging gameplay loop, but then there's Unsealed Spellbook. The rune isn't intuitive at first, and lacks a dedicated gameplay loop, whilst requiring more foresight than any other rune in the game to get the most out of it. Unsealed Spellbook allows you to swap to any summoner spell you didn't load into the game with at the 6-minute mark with an initial 4-minute cooldown. Each subsequent swap reduces that cooldown by, as of patch 25.10, 35 seconds until after the 6th swap, where you can then swap to a new summoner spell every 90 seconds for the rest of the game. Oh, and you can't select the same spell twice within the stretch of 3 swaps. Still with me? Now, if that sounds ridiculous, it's because it is. With the 25.10 buff numbers I just mentioned, this thing is kind of a monster now, and considering Chovy just used the rune to complete Genji's reverse sweep versus HLE, it's probably about to see a lot more general use. Which begs the question, when can you go Unsealed Spellbook, and how the heck do you even use it? Before we cover that though, let's talk about the most common misuse for the keystone historically, and it's a pretty simple one. Not swapping summoner spells enough. If you don't swap your summoner spells, then the rune's cooldown stays higher for longer, you delay not being able to reselect the more favourable summoner spells, and you stop yourself from reaching that juicy 90-second swap timer by around the 21-minute mark, so make sure you swap those summoners. Now, to answer when you can use Unsealed Spellbook, the general gist is this. If you're playing a champion that isn't relying on a keystone to function, in a matchup where your preferred keystone won't see much use in lane, or you have an easy matchup where you can get through the first 6 minutes unscathed, then you have an angle to go Unsealed Spellbook. Which then brings us to that second question. How do you use it? This is where it gets fun. Because of its versatility, there's no one true answer and it depends on the game you're in, so let's go over a brief example. Say you're a mid laner and come into the game with Flash and Teleport. At level 6, it looks like you could get a solo kill with Ignite. Swap to Ignite at the 6-minute mark and use the pressure to try for a solo kill. You get the kill, however burn Flash, though fear not. When the next swap rolls around, your Flash will still have a few minutes of downtime, so you swap in Ghost on your Flash slot for extra mobility whilst you wait for Flash to come back up. And what's great about this is if you have no reason to use Ghost and your Flash comes back up, you can just burn Ghost and get your Flash back. By the third swap, imagine there's a Fed Assassin on the enemy team and you want to contest an objective. Swapping out your TP for Exhaust if your team doesn't have one already might not be a bad idea. See the pattern here? When used efficiently, you get to just have a free and very powerful summoner spell up for a majority of the match, and it's game warping. And if you have an opportunity to run this rune, I think you should be at every chance. I've barely scratched the surface in this video, but if you'd like a slightly more in-depth look at how to use this rune, I highly suggest you check out Polypoth's video on it as well. Happy spellbooking, summoners!